shoot a movie, you hope you know what you have from dailies, from the script, from the set. But once you go into editing, this is where the movie actually takes shape.
The process of editing the movie is, it's 26 weeks. You start with an assembly of the film, everything that you shot, and then you start making choices. There was a cut of this film at a reasonable length that included the director's cut material. And it was something that we seriously considered as a theatrical cut of the film.
The following processes take place. Is the movie too long? Is the story clear? Do we feel that this movie is better off without certain elements? And sometimes these are good decisions for the big screen.
What's more valuable, a quick-paced, fast-moving movie, or a fuller content that might have some slower moments? As we go through and make this pace cut, I think we got to eliminate those pauses as much as possible.
I agree.
Unless they're there for a real dramatic effect. That one to me it's not necessary. My personal feeling is I was advocating speed over well shot, well acted, well directed, well performed scenes, but that we're going to overall slow down the movement of the film. I don't think in the commercial marketplace that the intellectual content necessarily is as important as the quick, exciting experience of this kind of a movie.
Avi had this whole thing about smelling the salt going into the thing. I mean, you could go from this right to him sinking into the tub. Not do that.
I love the theatrical cut. I love the movie, but it is a flawed movie, I think. After putting so much work into it and writing so many drafts of it and being so close to it, that it's easy to forget some of the things that got you in the first place. One of the things I always loved about Matt Murdock was how he'd stand up for the little guy. How he'd be able to take the case nobody else would take, and how he'd be able to use his senses as like a blind detective. And also about how the Kingpin was coming into his neighborhood and starting to take over. That was all stuff that was really integral for me in the story. And all of that, almost all of it, got cut out of the movie just for pace, which I understand. I mean, the studio wanted the movie to come in at under 100 minutes and just to move. And so it was hard because there was a lot of stuff in the original cut that had to get cut out that I really miss.
Originally, the first DVD was supposed to have a branching system where you could watch the movie as released, and that there were buttons that you could push, and that you would branch off to a director's cut. And because we had so much good material for the second disc, and we didn't want to lose the Dolby Digital and whatever other special components, there wasn't enough memory, enough space. So we ditched the director's cut for everything else. That cut was saved in the Avid, and when we knew that we were going to do a director's cut DVD, that cut was re-examined, polished, and then we went on to the mixing stage and finished it as if we were finishing it for a theatrical film. So it is the director's cut version. It's not something that was put together long after the fact. We had spent weeks seriously considering that as the cut of the movie, but ultimately we decided that it wasn't the right decision for that time.
The director's cut is everything that was originally set up. We had done some additional photography later in the movie to help clarify some things or to help bring out other aspects of the character, like the love scene with Jennifer Garner, which everybody understands why you want to have that scene. So there were some additions. The confessionals with the priest, those were additions that were brought in later. So these kinds of things were brought in for a reason, and I think they work, and they're an important part of the theatrical cut. But in the director's cut, they don't exist. A lot of things have been taken out like that, like the love scene, like the confessionals, and in their place is a lot of other stuff, which basically, the big difference for me is that the theatrical cut felt very much more like a revenge story of Who Got My Girlfriend. And that was never what the movie was supposed to be. The movie was supposed to be about the hero of Hell's Kitchen, the guy who stands up for the underdog, the guy who's going to go up against the biggest crime boss the city's ever seen. And that's what I think accomplished in this version.
What do we got? Oh, this one's a real winner.
Originally, there was a couple of different cases going on that I had written that all had to do with the Kingpin. The story became about, well, who's a character that nobody else will take? You know, who's one of the downtrodden? Who represents the kitchen and the underdog, you know? And so we came up with this idea of this prostitute, you know, murdered prostitute, nobody thinks twice about her. And Matt Murdock hears her murder, and we see it in a very graphic way in his apartment as he's going to bed one night. We think that she's actually in the room with him, but that's the way he hears things. I think it's very effective in showing that this man has a haunted life, that he can't escape it. Even in the chamber before he goes down, the last thing he hears is a woman gasping her last breath. It's very scary. And so from then it becomes this mystery. You know, did this Dante Jackson, played by Coolio, I think really, really well. Coolio did an amazing job. Is he guilty, or is it something else? And the something else turns out to be something bigger and bigger and bigger. Matt Murdock has to use all of his senses and all of his smarts to find out what's going on. And ultimately, what I like about it is that by representing someone that no one else would pay attention to, that leads to the biggest fish in the city, you know, which is kind of, you know, the great lesson about it all. And so that became the big storyline that pulled everything together, that really gave us, I think, a fun mystery that a lot of people are going to go, oh, you know, now I get it. And we've never had a threat of the Kingpin up till now. You know, now in the you'll see where he brains that one bodyguard and he snaps the other one's neck, and we're like, wow, you know, he didn't think twice about it. So there's very little threat of Kingpin in the first movie, in the theatrical cut. And I think in this version he's much more fleshed out, and he's much more of an imposing figure. It's interesting because there's times in the movie where I've changed things, and sometimes I don't even think it's necessarily an improvement, but I thought, we've already got the other version. You know what I mean? I like the confessionals in the theatrical release, but we've already seen those. So I have an original version of the story that did not include those, so I'm going to show you that.
Stay with me.
I like the love scene between Jennifer and Ben, but we've seen it, and the original version did not have that. It was more about this guy can't get a break. It was much more about when Matt Murdock shows up in the office the next day, you know, and he's downbeat. He's downbeat because he couldn't be with the girl that he wanted to be with. He's downbeat because there's no way out for him, not because it's tough being a superhero. It's a different feel.
What?
I have to go. I'm sorry. I have to go.
Matt.
When he shows up at the party and walks up the steps to find her, he's coming to say, I'm sorry. You know, not, hey, I found you, let's go dance. You know, so it's a different level going on in the movie. And I like that.
What's he doing here? Who? It's Ben Urich. It's the reporter from the Post.
Joey Pants is one of my favorite actors, and I was so happy to get him in the movie. And he's so great, and he's so good in the movie, but he lost some scenes, and I really missed him. Because again, I mean, this movie is all about this kind of time bomb, you know, that we're working towards. It's not the revenge of a girlfriend who got killed. It's about this much bigger story. And so Urich, the reporter, is a much bigger part of the film, putting the pressure on Matt.
I know the truth about Daredevil.
I know who you are. All that stuff, you know, is great, because you know that Matt Murdock is really coming to a point in his life where he's got to make a decision. You know, am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? Am I going to keep doing this, or am I going to give it up? Am I going to live? Am I going to die? You know, and Urich is the one who's kind of the voice of the audience. He's kind of our great choir. I really believe that movies are made up of small moments, you know. And when you think about your favorite movies, it's rare that you think of the big scenes. You remember all the little things, you know, and those are the things that stick with you forever, you know. In the comic, one of the great, you know, stories was that Matt Murdock, who thinks his mother's dead or ran away or left her father. His father is actually a nun and has been watching over him in a way, and to help with that whole tortured Catholic, you know, side of Daredevil, which is so great. And you know, but of course I don't have time to explain that in the movie, so it was just done in, I think, a very subtle, beautiful way of the nun visiting him as a boy and him reaching up with his eyes blindfolded, and he feels the crucifix. And for the fans, they love it. I remember telling Frank Miller that I had this scene and I had to cut it out, and Frank was going, oh, you're breaking my heart, man. And she's there in the church watching over him, and it's a great character. And those are the things that get lost, of course, because people go, who's that? So you'll say, who's a nun? Let's cut it, you know. They're not wrong, you know, but those are the little moments for me that I love and that I totally miss. Of all the people in the film that, you know, everyone gets cut down, right? Almost everyone. Probably the one that I missed the most was Foggy.
Hey, come on, I got a blind guy here.
You know, because Jon Favreau is so funny, and he's so good in the film, and we need him so much in this film because of the darkness. But a lot of that comedy was a little bit off subject, you know, and it was stuff that could get left out, unfortunately, for Jon and for me, because I'm a huge fan of those scenes.
Excuse me 1 second, Your Honor, I'm working alone here today.
Those ones stayed to the very, very end. When you see Foggy in the courtroom alone, even when I cut the Dante Jackson story, I still wanted to keep that in the movie.
Braille.
And they were like, well, what's this? I'm like, well, just to show that his buddy's not around and he's got to do a case on his own. Well, what's a case? Doesn't matter. Just to show that, you know, I was so desperate to keep that stuff in the movie because he's so good. You know, and all this stuff with the two of them going through Lisa Tasio's apartment. And, you know, he's always kind of our voice. And you love that guy, you know, you love that character.
Must have been sick the day they taught that. Is that real estate law?
His stuff is some of what I miss the most, and what I'm really happy people get to see, because Favs is genius, I think, in the film.
I wanna bloody cost you. I wanna fucking cost you.
I didn't really expect an R. This is a harder movie, and it's more violent. It's not extensively more violent. I found that a lot of the things of the MPAA were very minor things. There were things like stabbing Elektra, which isn't that different from the director's cut. The difference is that he doesn't take the long kiss on the lip and pull her lip back. It was interesting. It was okay to stab her. You just can't stab her and kiss her. You know, so it's these very odd things, you know, that you find that you're dealing with for the rating. There is more fighting. Certainly the Kingpin fight is a much more violent and a much better fight. I was always disappointed in that cut because in the theatrical version we build up this Kingpin character, and then, you know, Daredevil shows up, Kingpin throws him in a wall, and it's over pretty much. You know, you're like, well, that's it. You know, you've been waiting for this fight. The studio felt, rightly or wrongly, that there was too much fighting already, and that it would feel repetitive at that point in the movie. I don't think that's true. I think that every fight's very different, and that last fight for me was David and Goliath. I think it's an overall darker tone, to be honest, and that's why we got the R. The feel of it is very eerie and I think very effective. And investigating her life in that case, it's all very kind of mysterious, so it gives you a darker tone. There's nothing more violent in it. It's just, I think it's a little bit more true to the original concept of the movie. I was mixing the director's cut, and some people came in from the hallway at Fox, and they were watching some of the engineers, and they were like, oh, okay, now I get it. And it was pretty soon a crowd began to fill around the doorway because a lot of holes were being filled in for people. And a lot of people were saying, well, why did you cut that? Oh, why'd you cut that? You know, it's always the hardest thing as a director when people look at you and go, what'd you do that for?
Yeah, I appreciate everything.
It's tough because the criticism that I have heard of the movie has been mostly that there's not enough story, which is why I'm so glad that there's a director's cut. This is like the story version of the story, you know? So that's hard. It's always hard to hear criticisms of something that you know are probably right and that you have to agree with on some level.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, you make decisions and you have a cut of the movie. Some you agree with, some with you don't, but that's the movie. I think there's value as a lover of film, as a lover of certain actors and actresses, as a Daredevil fan, to see some of the other ideas that were thought about that weren't ultimately chosen to be in the final theatrical cut of the film. I think that's a fun, interesting experience, but that's not the movie. The movie is Daredevil that was released last year in the theaters, and you can buy on the other DVD. That's, you know, again, that's how I feel, and I do think it's a better cut. I trust the work that we did then.
That's the luxury of the DVD business. DVDs are there not only to deliver the movie, but to deliver the extras. And direct-to-cut is a luxury that this industry affords us to do. And I think people will love it in its entirety. And now people can see it. So it's wonderful.
I know that some people will prefer the theatrical, you know, and I think a lot of people will prefer the director's cut. It just depends what you like in your movie. You know, it depends if you want something that's in and out, 90 minutes, good time, you know, or do you want to be able to take your time and get more into a story and be willing to go more on this hero's journey. I think people will find it very interesting, and ultimately we'll have to decide, you know, which version I like more.
How am I gonna find you?
You won't.
I'll find you.